What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 15 favorite ZT folding knives of all time. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know that I am a huge zero tolerance fan. I have not been such a fan of where they've been going here lately, and I'm hoping that they, at least with a couple models, maybe return to their roots. And I know that I've heard that echoed, by some other members in the knife community. So hopefully that's the case. But I love old school overbuilt ZT knives mixed with kind of some of the more futuristic stuff they did before they, did what they're doing right now. And so this list is kind of a bunch of those knives. But I knew, number one, I can't make everybody happy with this list. The list is all just based on my own personal opinion, but I wanted to try and include some models that I think a lot of people like, that I've not necessarily handled. So I do have a few honorable mentions we're going to start out with. This is an iPad episode, meaning each one of these knives is going to be an image. If you'd like to see my actual review of the knife, most of these actually do have reviews on my channel, so you can actually go back and watch me physically handle the knife, talk about it, talk about whether or not I recommend it, etc. Also, if you've been enjoying my content for a while and you'd like to help support me, you can follow the link in the description of my Patreon. Have a look around, and then if you'd like to, you can join any tier. The support would mean the world to me. I do have stickers, and I do a once-a-week Patreon exclusive video. Also, a lot of these knives are actually still in production, so if there's something that you see that you really like, check out my description. There's going to be links for them, as well as things like EDC tools, EDC carry items like flashlights, pry bars. There's also going to be a lot of other pocket knives down there, some of the most popular stuff of all time, mixed with some of my opinions on stuff that I like. There's budget knives, there's more expensive knives. No matter what your itch is, if you're doing some weekend shopping, either for yourself or a loved one this holiday season, check out my description. You're sure to find something that you'll really like. Anyways, let's start off here with the honorable mentions. First up, the one that you can see on the screen right now is the ZT0456. This is a Sinkovich design. I reviewed this knife. I really liked it. 20 CV blade. It's got a big, thick, chunky titanium construction. It's a fat little knife. I really like it. I didn't think that I would, but I do. When considering it up against my top true 15, which by the way are in order, meaning when we get to it, number one is my actual absolute favorite ZT. Up against those 15, I just found that it just kind of slightly missed the mark. It's a fantastic knife. If it's one of your favorites, you definitely didn't choose wrong. It just didn't quite make my top 15 list. Moving on here, this is the ZT0850. The first time I saw this knife, I was like, nope, hate it, weird, ugly. Then the blue carbon fiber kind of started to grow on me, and the blade shape does look pretty, functional, and I've heard it's really lightweight for how, big it is. And then they came out with that Sprint Run in black, and I was like, man, I really want that knife. I've never actually handled this, but I've heard good things about it. It's pretty expensive, but yeah, it might make my top 15 list if I ever get a chance to handle it. Moving on here, the Zero Tolerance 0055. This is a GTC collaboration. The actual GTC is it the Airborne? This is modeled after, looks almost identical. The first time I looked at this knife, I was like, no way, don't like it. It's too weird. Then I handled it at a Cabela's, and I was like, this is actually really cool. It has that retracting flipper tab that you pull down and then use to flip. It's got a compound ground Wharncliffe blade, very futuristic. I actually called my buddy Ricky. Ricky, if you're watching this, a gentleman who used to be on the channel with me, you'll remember I called him in the middle of the day and I was like, hey, I'm at a Cabela's. I'm handling the 0055 GTC collab, and I really, really like it. Yeah, I like it. It's a lot bigger than most people think, I would think. And it's also, I don't know how practical the blade shape is, but yeah, it's really cool. It's not going to make my top 15, but I really like it. Next up, a knife that I have not handled, but a lot of people kind of say is the original knife that kind of drew them into ZT's whole overbuilt thing. This is the Ken Onion 0200. Mega heavy built, overbuilt, just beast of a knife. I've never handled it. I've been talking with somebody considering lending me one for review, so that might be something that you guys get to see here in the very near future. It might make my list. I don't know. I've got to handle it first. Next up, the picture actually shows a website that I do not have permission to use their logo, so I'm going to cover it up with one of my stickers here. But this is a knife that a lot of you are going to be familiar with, kind of. This is the 0888. Very special short run version of a knife that had a composite S110V blade and something else I can't remember. These were originally $500. They go for a lot more on the secondary market now. I have never handled one. I have no idea if it's, I'll tell you right now, it's not going to be worth whatever people are asking for it on the secondary market in mint condition, but this is a super cool looking knife. I don't know if it was worth the original $500 when it first came out, but I'd have to handle it. It might be something that might make my list. I need to handle it. So moving on here, this is the final honorable mention. Oh no, it's not the final honorable mention. This is just another knife that I think a lot of people really like, or a lot of people don't even know exists. This is the G&G Mud, what is this? The 0500? Is that right? I can't remember if that's the case. I believe this is the 0500. Anyways, it's got that thing inside the pivot that makes it like dirt and debris completely unable to get in there. This is, other than like cold steel triad locks, this and the original Custom Art, they're some of the most hard use folding knives that exist out there. Now this has its disadvantages. For one, it's incredibly thick, both in blade and handle. The thumb studs are kind of ridiculous. It's got a lot of things that kind of stick out and make it not practical. But man, if you really need a knife that's just incredibly durable and at the same time folds, I've heard this thing's incredible. I have seen one at a gun show, and the truth is I don't know if the one that I saw was a clone or not. I don't have enough experience with these models, and I know that they have been cloned. So I can't, I maybe handled one, maybe didn't. I don't know. I can't really say. It might make my top 15 if I actually ever handled it, but I don't know. And then I think here, last up, the actual last honorable mention, yeah, this is the ZT0999, I believe. This is a, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. Obviously, for obvious reasons, I haven't had my hands on this. It's very expensive, very short run knife. One of ZT's most expensive, if not their most expensive knife out of the factory. I think these were, correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say I read they were $750 out of the factory. It's a composite 204P and D2 blade. You can see the copper weld. It's got carbon fiber inlays like floating in the blade. And then all these crazy lines. There's a lot that went into making this knife. No idea if it's actually worth the money or was worth the original asking price. You're definitely going to pay more than that on the secondary market if you can find one. This has got to be one of the rarest ZTs out there. Looks cool. I'd have to handle it to actually judge it and say whether or not it's actually part of my true top 15. Okay, moving on to my actual top 15. Like I said, each one of these knives is in order, meaning number 1 is my absolute favorite. So, starting off here at number 15, the 0804 CF. This is a Rexford design, one that I recently reviewed on the channel and loved. Full carbon fiber scale on the front, and then I think that had a 20 CV blade. Big knife, big powerful flipper. Really like this. Really made me feel like old school ZT. It's got a nice straightforward design. For being such a big knife, it's got an awesome carry profile. I really enjoyed that one. Moving on here to number 14, the ZT0095. This was actually my buddy Ricky's first ZT knife. This is a really underrated knife. S35EN in full titanium construction. It's a very thin blade and one of ZT's best performance blades ever. So much cutting belly. It's just an absolute laser beam. This is an awesome knife. It's very easy to carry. You're getting a lot of blade, and I think it's a reasonable value. I think you can still get this knife, absolutely. So make sure you check my description if you're interested in that one. Moving on here to number 13, one that's kind of a guilty pleasure for me, the ZT0303. This is arguably ZT's biggest, chunkiest, meatiest knife. It's also assisted, which makes no sense to me. It's got the external stop pin thing, big titanium frame lock construction. The later ones, the more recent ones here, actually have steel lock bar inserts. I think you can still buy these. They're pretty pricey, but it looks like a folding alligator. That's what it looks like to me. Absolutely. I kind of like the Tiger Stripe blade. This thing is like mega over the top, tactical, very thick behind the edge. It's not a performance slicer, but would I trust it in a hard use situation? Yeah, this thing is pretty, it's built in a way that's it emphasizes durability. Absolutely. Really like that knife. It's kind of a holy cow. Like anybody that handles one, I do have a review on it on the channel. Anybody that handles one is just like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Moving on here to number 12. The knife that you're seeing here is the 0801 Ti. Actually, the gentleman who lent me his 0303, which was like one of the first videos on my channel, also just recently lent me this one, his most recent ZT purchase, one that is being discontinued right now. Another Rexford design. I reviewed this, like I said, Awesome knife. I never knew how much I would love it. It just looked very plain to me, but it still has that overbuilt ZT feel. S35VN, full titanium construction, awesome milling lines, awesome flipping action, very easy to carry. It's just a good knife, just an example of a really good ZT knife, something that ZT should look into returning to, absolutely, or this style anyway. Moving on here to number 11. As you can tell, I've got a piece of paper off to the side, a little cheat sheet. This is the ZT0452. Specifically, my favorite version is the TI version. They made a full titanium version of this knife. This is the big one with like the 4.1-inch blade. Oh my gosh, the flipping action on this thing, given the thickness and length and weight and mass of that blade, it just, bam, it kicks so hard. This version that was full titanium was my favorite. I love full tie knives. It was this big, long, titanium frame lock, but because it was so slim and slender, it was actually easy to carry. It was one of the easiest to carry large knives that I have ever experienced. Sadly, this version of it is gone. I don't know if they still do the 0452 or not. Like I said, it'll be down in the description if so. Moving on here to number 10. A lot of people are going to go, what is that? This is an old discontinued fixed blade, the 0180. It's actually based on Rick Hinder. This is a Hinder collaboration. It's based on Rick Hinder's Field Tack fixed blade. This had a Venatus something or other blade. It was meant to be like super tough. I love this fixed blade. This is like a quintessential fixed blade design to me. I think it was a 5-inch blade or 5.5-inch blade. Can't remember. Just two pieces of G10 with some mega monster. They look like T20 screws and a straightforward sort of bushcraft style blade. I don't know. I'm sure the bushcraft community is going to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think I don't know if this is more of a tactical. I don't know. It's just a really good looking knife to me. It's long since discontinued. The only version of this that you can still readily get is Rick Hinder's actual Field Tack knife, which is very expensive. I don't know how much this knife was brand new. I'm going to imagine it was somewhere around $200, but I can't remember if people said that it was actually a really good performance knife or not. I love this knife. I have handled it before. It's really cool. I don't have a lot of use experience with it, and I don't have a review on the channel, but I just love it. It's so straightforward, and it just feels like this. It just feels like a sharpened pry bar. I mean, that's exactly, it feels exactly like how it looks. I'm just a huge fan of that knife. Moving on here to number 9. The ZT0909. This is a knife that just did not catch on with a lot of people. Les George design based on his Talos model, both mid-tech and custom. This was a very thick steel liner lock and G10 construction with an S35VN blade. When it released at $180, and when I reviewed it, my opinion of it was it's cool, it's overbuilt, it's thick. I really like the liner lock construction. And I stand by that, but I think a lot of people were like, $180? And understandably, they eventually dropped the price down to like $135, and I snagged another one before they got discontinued, and then stupidly sold that one as well. Now, if you want to get a hold of them, oh, thanks, iPad. Now, if you want to get a hold of them, you're going to pay a lot more money, I think, on the secondary market. This was just a cool knife, and it did have it actually ended up having a pretty slicey blade, considering the blade stock thickness was 155 thousandths. I really like the original Les George Talos, so that was one that I was a little biased towards. Moving on here to number 8, one that I have not reviewed on the channel yet, but I have just recently unboxed it, and spoiler alert, it's an awesome knife. The ZT0630 CF in particular, the one that I like. This is an Emerson Wave design. Now, the ZT0620 had the Tanto. I like this version way better with the belly and the Emerson Wave. The Emerson Wave on this knife works perfectly. I love the overbuilt kind of feel. It's running on phosphor bronze, which is really cool, making it an actual hard use folding knife. Dirt and debris is not going to get in there. This is just a great knife. I don't want to give too much away because I'm still going to review it, but you're just going to have to trust me. It's a great knife. Moving on to number 7, the OG Hinder collaboration knife, the 0550. This thing is a freaking tank of a knife. The titanium's actually thicker than on the true XM18. Great ergonomics, kind of a weird little nub down here, but it doesn't get in the way when it's folded up. Does act as a good finger guard. Jimping everywhere, a nice robust drop point blade. Just an awesome knife. This knife was lent to me by a generous viewer for review, and I just had a joy experiencing it. Really, really cool. Can't get these anymore, sadly, but really cool knife. Moving on here to number 6, another Hinderer collaboration. I think one of the earliest, maybe the second one. This is the 0560. The version that was lent to me and that I reviewed on the channel, like the 0550, was the CBCF version, the S110V composite with 12C27. I don't know what it was. Really awesome knife. This was a bigger one designed to be more like the XM24. This just, screamed like big overbuilt ZT mixed with Hinderer. Very similar to the actual Hinderer XM18. Flipper tab, very similar. It's kind of in between the sizes of the XM18 3.5 inch and the XM18 or the XM24. Just really cool. Had the big body screws and everything. Had awesome golf ball texturing on the titanium side. Really like that knife. Moving on here to number 5. This is going to surprise a lot of you. The ZT0640. Listen, I know people don't like the freaking lizard green carbon fiber, and I'll agree with you. It may not have been the right color choice, but this is a great knife. It's an Emerson design, very, very functional blade shape, great size, running on phosphor bronze, awesome titanium sort of like frame lock with carbon fiber overlay construction. Here's all they need to do to get this to be attractive. Do it in black carbon fiber in 20 CV, or do it in black G10 and S35VN, and everybody will be happy. It's an awesome knife, easy to carry, very functional. It's definitely one of ZT's best actual EDC designs while still holding on to their true overbuilt nature. Moving on to number 4, a knife that I have not reviewed on this channel, but will be very soon, the ZT0920. Another Les George design knife based on his Harpy. This thing is a beast and sadly recently discontinued. Awesome contoured titanium construction, full titanium with some milling lines in there. Beautiful recurve blade. I don't normally like recurve blades, but this is sort of a pseudo harpoon recurve blade. Really, really cool. Big, like monster blade, while still, I think it's only like 5.25 ounces, 5.5 ounces, something like that. A lot of people like this knife. Has kind of a weird pocket clip. They chose to do bronze with some bronze gear pattern standoffs, but that's okay. I've heard nothing but good things about this knife. And I've handled it before, and I think the community agrees, with my thoughts. If I review it, I'm probably going to give it a positive review. Definitely one that makes the top of my list. Moving on here to number 3. It's not going to be any surprise to you guys who know I'm a huge Hinderer fan. The ZT0393, specifically the SW model. This knife should have been way more popular than it was. The problem was they released a blue and black version as their production model and then did some plainer versions as sprint runs. This should have been the very first one released. The plain stonewash blade with the black G10. This is one of ZT's best knives by a long shot. Oh my gosh, I love this knife. So sad that it's discontinued, this version anyway. The ZT0393, the original in 20 CV in the blue, that's still available. You can find it down in my description. But this is definitely one of ZT's best designs based on the Hinderer Eclipse, except it's a titanium frame lock with overlays. Overlays sort of representing how the Maximus, the Hinderer Maximus dagger, did it. Just an amazing design. It has external stop pins, just like the true Hinderer, and you actually have pieces that are modular with Hinderer parts, meaning the actual Hinderer pocket clips, filler tabs, and pivots will fit on this knife. Moving on to number 2, another knife that's going to come as no surprise, the ZT0562, specifically the ZT0562 Ti. If you have not experienced this knife yet, any variation of the ZT0562, you should. I'm not going to say you have to. I'm going to say you should. They are incredible. Arguably the best standard Hinderer, like the actual XM18 knife. This is the best version of it outside of the actual XM18 itself. Some will say that the ZT is actually the better Hinderer. I disagree, but they're very, very close. For $280, you can get essentially a full tie Hinderer XM18 in 20 CV and arguably his best grind, the slicer grind. This is an amazing knife. I have a review of it on my channel. You should definitely check it out. All right, guys, moving on to number 1. Some of you guys are going to be able to guess, and some of you aren't. Coming in at number 1, the ZT0392, specifically the black-green version. This is meant as, basically a ZT version of the Eclipse. But it's built literally exactly the same, has actual Eclipse hardware that is modular with the Eclipse still to this day, has an old grind that Hinderer has only previously made available on limited customs that he's done. Amazing knife. The titanium scales are almost exactly the same as true Hinderer titanium scales. This was part of a factory custom thing that they did where they released this knife in a whole bunch of different colors. You can check them out. This is just my favorite color setup. But they did a whole bunch of these that were priced actually better than a standard Eclipse with just G10. Sorry about that. I was getting distracted looking at the timestamp because I knew I had to cut the video. But anyways, like I said, this was based on the Eclipse, but a standard Eclipse model from Rick Hinderer back during this time period where this was coming out was, number one, incredibly unobtainable. Number two, the prices on the secondary market were being blown up just like the XM18, 3.5 inch and 3 inch and 24. So they just weren't obtainable. So ZT does this collaboration with Rick Hinderer. They do this factory custom that is probably almost too good, right? These were coming out of the factory at like $385, $390, which was a lot of money, but still way better, right, than what people were asking on the secondary market for the actual Eclipse or Hinderer XM18. And at the same time, you were getting full titanium, which was, even if you could get a Hinderer back then, you could get an Eclipse, a 3.5 inch. Good luck finding a titanium scale, right? And you're gonna pay even more money for that. So you could get it in full tie, and on top of that, it was running on bearings and a steel lock bar insert, which back then, in Generation 3, Generation 4 Hinderers, and even before that, Gen 1 and 2, they were not running on bearings. In fact, they were running on Teflon, which was really controversial back then. So you could have a knife that was, back then, by that time period standards, substantially better than the real thing for less than half the price. And yeah, that's at $380. If you were going to get a full titanium Eclipse or XM18 from the secondary market back then, you were definitely going to pay over $800 back in 2012, 2013, and even the early parts of 2014. 100%. So this knife got put up on a pedestal for me because the green anodization was kind of hard to achieve when these things were prominent, and it was actual Hinderer hardware, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can get bearings and a steel lock bar insert, and it has that cool blade shape, and oh man. I did own an all black one that, there's pictures of it on my Instagram, but not an actual review, and I did actually hunt down one of these black-green models at some point, but I had an issue with it being falsely, it wasn't described accurately, and it was just, it put a sour taste in my mouth. So this is kind of a dark unicorn to me. I still want it. I'd love to review this knife on my channel. I just have not had an opportunity yet, but rest assured it is an excellent knife. Sadly, long gone. You can only find these now. The irony is that now these are commanding insane prices on the secondary market. The least expensive I've seen a mint condition one of these in a long time was $550, which I'll tell you right now, unless you're really, really, really drooling over it, I wouldn't recommend paying. But still, in my opinion, ZT's most excellent knife of all time. Guys, that's going to be pretty much it for today's video. Like I said, there are links in the description for many of these knives, along with a whole bunch of other amazing EDC tools, maintenance items, and knives that are both, extremely popular by the community standards and by my standards alike. So check out my description. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. That'd be right here. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.